Welcome to the Steven Sulley Study. This podcast is just basically my take on being a success. I've been a part of businesses, developed businesses, I had a lot of success. I've had some major setbacks and I've made some big mistakes. I'm just sharing my journey so far and my observation of people that I've been around, people that I've studied, books I've read, podcasts I listened to, mentors I've got, and so on. And as I've mentioned in other episodes of my podcast, at the core of every single business, in my opinion, and even at the core of every entrepreneur, is a salesperson or a sales organisation or a team. I'm part of sales companies where I will go in there and give them talks on either sales skills itself, or maybe mindset. Maybe it could be some kind of talk about setting goals, inspiration, that kind of thing. So I wanted to go through a routine Monday to Friday. It's a very, very short podcast. I wanted just to give you a small snippet and some basics, because you might be thinking about setting up your own sales company. You might be a part of a sales company. You might already own one, and this might just help you out. So I went over a routine of a champion, which starts from 1 minute past 5 myself in the morning, and I went through a few steps, what I do every single morning to get myself in the peak state. This now is basically what I'm going to share with you, what we do Monday to Friday at a sales company to get the best out the people, so they can hit their goals, their targets, and of course so they're on track and they're always developing and always becoming sharper as an individual. So on Mondays, we always talk about goals and your vision for the future. The goals could be personal goals, or they could be goals that we're going to set for the company for that particular week, that particular month, or even a year. It's so important to start your week off talking about goals, in my opinion, because these are the things that get you excited. The whole reason why people go into sales in the first place is one of the hardest things in the world to do, and it's certainly a very mind battling place to be when things are not going so right. And it always comes back down to, have you got any goals? Are you committed on your goals? And are you really excited and driven by that vision of achieving your goals or not? So I always like to remind the whole entire sales team about their own personal goals and also the company. So the goals could be something like their vision boards, talking about which part of their vision board that they're going to be going after first, how much money they need to make in order to achieve these goals, how long they need to spend on the phone that particular day or week or month in order to give themselves a big enough chance of finding the right clients and generating the sales, or maybe going out and booking appointments and that kind of thing. And again, it's very, very hard to master something if you're not measuring it. And the way you measure things, in my opinion, is having clear, defined goals for that particular day, that particular week, that particular month, and knowing where you're heading. I do believe there's a difference between goals and a vision. Goals are more, let's say, I would call them a little bit more short-term opposed to your vision. So a vision could be something along the lines of, in 20 years time, 10 years time, you want to be living in a different corner of the world, and you want to have a certain kind of house. You might be want to own a private jet or a yacht, at some point. And I would say it'd be unrealistic to call it a goal which you're going to achieve maybe the next day, for example. So I feel that a vision is the bigger purpose, and your goals are things which you're going to achieve a lot more short term. So you can have mini goals, or you can have mini goals which you're going to set every single day, which are going to make you feel good and give you empowerment. But then you've got bigger goals which might take you a few months, maybe even a year or two, in order to achieve. But I always believe, coming back to the point on a Monday, it should always be focused about your goals, talking about your goals, the necessary steps, and making sure that everyone's accountable and everyone is basically on the same page when it comes down to hitting their targets and definitely achieving their goals. So on Tuesday, we normally do sales training. This could be anything from rebuttal training. This could be uncovering people's concerns or objections. This could be things like doing an upsell, because it's a very, very easy way of doubling your income by just doing some upsells with clients. It could be things like different kind of product training, because most sales companies, most marketing companies, they have different products they can offer people. So it might be training on these specific products. It could be anything from just the way into a call, or the way you're gonna speak to someone when you first meet them and you go and have a coffee or something like that. It's basically just to sharpen up their skills and to make sure that they're very, very confident either on the phone or face to face when they're meeting these clients. It's very, very important that you are prepared when you're speaking to any prospect or client. And I feel that you're gonna lose a sale or lose a deal if you're not sharp on your sales presentation, your objection handling, and most importantly, you're not refined on your skills, basically. On a Wednesday, we do personal development, so that could be anything from listening to a podcast, reading some kind of part to a book, and then everyone taking notes on it, and then basically talking about it. And sharing what they believe or their perception of that particular point was. We might watch something on YouTube. The reason why I feel learning and having personal development and sharing it with your sales organisation and your people is because, as we well know, the definition of wisdom is learning from other people's experiences, whether that is success or failure or a little bit of both. I personally like to watch things where it's like a rags to riches kind of story, or someone that's come from literally nothing or poverty and then they turn themselves into some kind of superstar. Sports people are great. I love watching, obviously, these people come from very deprived backgrounds and they turn into these Premiership footballers or boxers, or basically anyone who's turned themselves into a household name. And it's nice to see that mindset. So even though as a salesperson, you might not be kicking the ball around or doing boxing, you share the same kind of mindset about pushing through the barriers and things. I think that's very, very important to do. On a Thursday, we will try and play out a sales call. Sometimes we play out ones which are done, which are really, really good, and everyone in the room takes notes. We then talk about it. We talk about how it could be improved, and of course we do play out sometimes the not so good calls, because you actually learn a lot from them as well. I think it keeps everyone accountable. It keeps everyone making sure that they're staying within the guidelines of how to sell, because they know they could potentially be recorded. So they're always going to keep their professional mindset intact, and they're going to make sure that they're doing things right. It just keeps everyone basically on their toes, and it's nice to hear when you're training people, they listen, they write things down, they practice it, and then they implement it to a live sales call, and then you hear it and the whole room takes note of it. It's a great thing to see. There's so many salespeople, and I guess in any kind of organisation or any kind of profession, that so many people out there are a little bit too arrogant to get taught. They refuse to get taught something that's going to help them and make them improve. And they never ever get better. They stay the same year in, year out for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I like the young, hungry, open-minded people that come into sales, because you literally will tell them something with a proven formula. They make it their own, they implement it into a sales call, then you listen to it and it works perfectly. It's a real nice sensation to hear that and actually see it working on the telephone or even face to face again. On a Friday, we make sure that we get our salespeople to do a presentation. The reason why I think this is important, again, it keeps them on track, it keeps them on their toes, it makes them a little bit nervous but quite excited, and it gets them used to doing presentations face to face. And I've always said to the sales organisation that I'm a part of that in 5 years' time, shorter, maybe even longer, they will be able to transfer their mindset, their skill set into a different venture or a different path that they might take later on. And learning how to do public speaking or presentations is absolutely key. I believe that it's a very, very useful skill, and I think it's a skill that you can transfer into many different career choices, even if that is some point down the line. I think it's very, very important to know. It also keeps them accountable, because if they say they're going to do a presentation on Friday and they do some kind of weak presentation or something that was unorganized and it turns out to be completely garbage, then they're going to feel quite embarrassed. So Mondays we do goals and vision training, and that could be all kinds of different things, as the simple steps in order to achieve a real goal and something that gets you nervous but quite excited. Sales training, we change that up all the time. It could be anything from the way into a sales call, the way you're going to speak to someone for the first ever time when you meet them, objection training, upsell training, that kind of thing. It's an easy way to increase your earnings when you learn how to home in on these skills and these different strategies. I think it's very, very important. On a Wednesday, we do personal development. It's very, very important that you learn from other people's experiences, mistakes, and also their successes. On a Thursday, we play out a call, so we can actually hear live what someone has done on that presentation, whether they served the client and given them value, whether they covered enough points about the service, themselves as a professional, and more importantly, the product and how it's going to fit their wants and needs. And then on a Friday, we get someone to do a presentation. And if you repeat that week in, week out, every single one of those salespeople, whether they've got experience or not, will become much sharper. There will become a better version of them, and ultimately they start making more money, and therefore the company starts making more money. And of course, your clients, which is the number one thing, are very, very happy because they're dealing with the right people, professional people who have got so much passion and enthusiasm for what they're doing. The client picks up on that and they become very, very happy. They start referring you and they actually spend more money. So by training your staff and your team week in, week out with a routine is absolutely key. Thank you for listening. It's just a small insight to some of the things that we implement at sales companies and some of the recommendations I give other sales companies. And thank you for tuning in. And if there's anyone that you feel can benefit from this podcast, please refer me. I'll be refer it. I'll be very, very grateful. Remember, be happy but never content. Thank you.